Hi, welcome to Board Game Madness. I'm Mike Ganade. In this matchup, we have Everdell, the #1 seed, versus Wreckland Run, the #32 seed, of course based on Board Game Geek rankings. Now, I did a short video, it's about 3 minutes long, about what Board Game Madness is, but essentially these two games are going to be going head-to-head in 4 different categories. Now, to give you a quick overview that's only a minute or so about each game, Wreckland Run is a solo game only, so it can only be played one player, and it's primarily a dice allocation and hand management game where you're rolling dice, a bunch of vehicles surround your vehicle, and you're using your dice to activate weapons on your car to blast away the enemies and survive enough to make it to the next sequence. You do get a chance to build up your car, which is fun, but it's a solo-only game, and it's played through a nice little campaign of games of about 30 minutes each. Now, Everdell is a more expensive game. It's a tableau Euro game, worker placement game, where you're going to have a bunch of critters, and you're building out your own town for them with different buildings and structures and different creatures that live inside them. You're building your own little town within the world of Everdell. The cards act as a tableau builder and point scoring system, and then you're going to be using your workers to acquire resources to pay for those cards. So the turns in Everdell are really simple. You either place a worker or play a card. But we'll get more into the exact mechanics a little bit later. I just wanted to give everyone a quick overview of what these two games are. They're not very similar at all, but this is what the board game rankings gave us, and this is where they fell. So with that, let's move on to our first round, which is production. Now, as far as production goes, looking at the artwork, I absolutely adore the artwork on Wreckland Run. It has a very comic book, graphic novel type feel, cel-shaded graphics almost. It sort of harkens to the video game Borderlands. I love this cover, I love this art. If you're aware of any of the games I've designed, you know, we've used this aesthetic in some of the games that I've done as well. So obviously, from an art perspective, I absolutely adore this. But I have to admit that the artwork on Everdell is, you know, obviously much more painted and detailed, but it's absolutely gorgeous. I've always liked this art. In fact, I think that this cover image is probably contributed to me backing the game originally, like without having ever played it before. I just love the artwork, and the production looks so nice. It drove me to back the game. Now, moving on to components, just to go through a couple things. One of the things, while I like the art style of Wreckland Run, all the cards in the game are very small. So other than the cover image, you know, the actual cards we're playing with, you have these vehicles you're fighting, and there's a lot of repeats. They're on smaller cards. Now, the artwork in this booklet, your sort of campaign booklet with these bigger pieces of artwork, are great. And they did extra artwork that you don't sort of need from the gameplay perspective. So I do like the overall artwork. It's just, there's not as much of it as Everdell. I mean, Everdell has a huge deck of cards with all of these beautifully hand-drawn critters and structures. And of course, it's a more expensive game, so when it comes to bits, the only bits you sort of get in Wreckland Run are some of these things to record damage, whereas Everdell has those as sort of sap, but then you also get, you know, some gold coins, some nice gold coins, the berries, and other unique resources, and of course you have the wooden meeples, you know, which are cute, that you use to place your workers. So, for production, we've got to give it to Everdell. No question. I mean, it costs more money, so the production should be better, but we're going to give it to Everdell. Moving on to our second category, which is game mechanics. As I mentioned at the top, Everdell is a really simple game to teach. On your turn, you place a worker or play a card into your tableau, and then all the depth of play comes with the cards you're actually playing and what they can do. So the fact that it's so easy to teach, it has that worker placement thing. It can be played you know, more than solo. It has a solo mode, but it also can be played with multiple players. Wreckland Run actually is a great little solo game. You can play very quickly. Basically, there's two phases. There's a wreckage phase where you get to build up your car a little bit by rolling dice and trying to meet certain combinations or values to put new parts on your car. And then you go to the sort of fighting phase where a bunch of cars surround you and blast you, but you choose which dice, you roll all your dice, but then you choose which die activates what. And that gives the players a lot of agency where you're not just randomly getting slaughtered by cars blasting you in a row. You have 3 red dice and you pick which one activates first, so you get to choose sort of how you want to tackle the puzzle of it, which I appreciate a lot. My favorite single mechanism from Wreckland Run is that you can discard a perfectly killed enemy as its die value to activate one of your parts, as if you placed a die there without placing a die there and thus sort of exhausting that part. So you can get some real good combos by saving up your kills and activating a bunch of weapons or gizmos on your car to get yourself out of tough situations. But this is solo only, so you know, by its very nature, this is sort of, you're playing this by yourself versus sitting down with 3 or 4 other people to play Everdell. So, second category, we're going to have to give it to Everdell. They're the winner of the mechanics as well. So they only need one more category to win this particular matchup. Moving on to the third quarter, the third round, we have theme. Now, I love the look of Everdell. The theme permeates what you're doing. You're playing workers and you're building all these cars in front of you, and you definitely feel like you're building a town. So the theme and mechanics do marry well together, but building a town of cute critters does not speak to me as much as a Mad Max style battle royale and escape. So, I mean, for me, Wreckland Run, the theme is right up my alley. I love the artwork and theme. This is exactly what I want to be. I want to be a Mad Max type person and be blasting other cars that are pieced together with a bunch of wreckage. So for me, theme, Wreckland Run is my preferred theme. So I'm going to have to give the third round to Wreckland Run. So last but not least, we have replayability and just my overall impressions after playing these games. And Wreckland Run has a great little campaign. I think the base game comes with 7 different missions and bosses to fight through. And then I got the Kickstarter version, so there's a free expansion box with like another mini campaign in it with 4 other bosses and missions. And each mission does open new things and add new things to the game. Each mission you get to open up a little reusable envelope, which is really nice. Helps you keep organized. It helps you keep organized, but also is a nice little serotonin boost that you get to open and unlock new things. And there are unique cards in different missions where they are offering you new gameplay mechanics. So the campaign is very enjoyable to play through, and I recently reset and started playing through the campaign from the start again with a different vehicle. There's plenty of vehicles and characters to mix up. So replayability-wise, it is decent for a solo game. There's tons of characters to choose from and different drivers, tons of different weapons you can put on the thing. And while there are 7 sort of set missions in the base game and 7 set bosses, they are very different, and I think it gives you a lot for what it's asking you for price. That being said, I think by nature of being a solo game, you're just not going to play this as much as you'll play Everdell. Assuming you like it. I mean, games aren't for everybody, but Everdell has, I mean, this is probably one of my most played worker placement games. Generally in my collection, I don't keep a lot of different games with the same mechanics. And this is a worker placement game that just stayed in my collection, you know, time after time when put against other worker placement games. You know, I've got only got a handful of worker placement games, And this one with the tableau building, especially in the card play, really gives me a lot of different puzzles and enjoyment. And I've probably played this game more than a lot of the other games in my collection. It also helps that it's a super easy teach. So teaching it to new players is pretty easy. And then the complexities of the game come through the cards, which you sort of have to learn over time anyway. So there's a lot to be discovered here when you play it over and over again. And that's without even introducing expansions, which it has several. So Everdell, I'm going to have to give it on replayability, which means Everdell is the winner of this matchup, and it will move on in the bracket to face its next game. So hopefully you've enjoyed our first matchup of Board Game Madness. Be sure to like and subscribe and be notified of all the future videos and matchups we have coming to you. We'll basically be doing a new video, a new matchup every day in the month of March. So you'll be able to see where everything lies in the tournament at the end of March. You'll be able to watch a new matchup every day, and then at the end of the month, you'll see who wins. As always, thanks for watching and supporting us. If you have any questions or opinions, please share them in the comments below, and we'll see you in the next matchup.